point, it would be ridiculous.
You guys are amazing.
I was thinking specifically about Christopher Cross, the guy that wrote that song, Sailing Takes Me Away. Right? And then you see that video of him, and he's got this football jersey on, and he's doing a concert in it. And then all the YouTube comments say, you're not paying for the outfit. You're paying for the song. Some things never change. So sooner or later, we're going to have slides here. We are working on that right now. And for whoever is working on that, the main thing is we're going to have to get the HDMI out on this. It is sensing the monitor, so let's see. Let me just try getting this going. Do we have anything there? All right. Holy crap, it works. Technology's on our side today. So I'm hoping that you're as excited about this as I am, because now that we've got slides, we are freaking golden. This thing is rocking and rolling. I want to share with you, in all reality here, what is the core of this conference? What are we all about? We want the truth, and we want it now. Just like Jim Morrison, we want the world, and we want the truth. And of course, Jack Nicholson's infamous quote, "You can't handle the truth." That's what they think. They meaning the powers that were. Amen to that. Look, I'm not here to talk about superstition. I'm not here to talk about swamp gas or flocks of geese. I'm here to talk about reality. I'm here to talk about a reality that has been hidden from you by people in power to enrich their wallets. And you don't need that anymore. That's why you're here. And if the events that are taking place that I'm going to show you in this talk actually come to pass as quickly as they appear to be, then I think there would be an awful lot more people here than there are now, if it had already happened by the time we get here. So by this time next year, I don't know how we're going to fit this event on this land. We're going to have to think of something different. It'll be like Burning Man. We'll go way out in the middle of the desert. You think it's hot right now, forget about it. So, of course, because I have unmet childhood narcissism, well, hello. That gain shouldn't be taken down that much. Hello? Test. Okay. All right, I'm not sure what happened there. So anyway, because I have unmet childhood narcissism needs, I decided to show you my picture. Just, if the slideshow works, do we have the slideshow? There we go, see? Now I feel better about myself. It boosted my self-esteem just a little bit higher, as if I didn't already need it, having a throng of spectators who just basically love every word that comes out of my mouth, like this overflowing cornucopia of goodness. And just tasty morsels of truth that you can just nibble on. Well, some of this stuff is going to be very nasty. You're going to get some fear porn in this conversation that we're having. But you know what? We need that. If you throw up, you'll feel better. I promise. Especially in this heat. So now I'm going to take you out into the stars and the cosmos here. If it'll work. Yeah, there we go. And I want to just remind you that this question of UFOs is ultimately a question about the soul. You are more than a body. You are a soul having a human experience. And that supersedes anything that we think is important in our normal daily lives. There's people out there who are the government for the soul. There's people out there who are making sure that things work out the way that they are supposed to. And the way they are supposed to, as I'm going to reveal to you in this talk, is that the whole business of human beings on a planet is nothing unusual in our galaxy. And apparently, according to this law of one material, which if you're aware of my greater work, I've validated this intuitively derived material with hundreds and hundreds of scientifically specific data points that it made. We know that according to the law of one, 40% of all the intelligent life in the universe is human. Not just our galaxy. In our galaxy, it's all human. But throughout the universe, it's 40%. So this is a very common design that we're using. It's not anything unusual. So what does it mean to be human? That fundamentally changed for me, that definition changed for me when I read this book in about 1995, Namkhai Norbu's Dream Yoga and the Practice of Natural Light. And as I said the other day, I don't think you were all here the other day for my other talk, and I am going to go into a lot more detail about this stuff on the Monday intensive. The rainbow body is apparently the objective of what we're here to do. The Tibetans, 160,000 people, followed a unified body of spiritual teaching that led to them achieving the rainbow body, as it's called, in which their body actually looks like this at the moment of death, which isn't really death, it's transcension. Their body literally transmutes into pure light. And this is apparently an illustration based on eyewitness view. This is not something that is like a telephone game that people told hundreds of years later and they said, oh, let's try to make a sketch of that. This is literally what it looked like. And you notice that there is an aura around the man. It's not just the man himself, it's the aura around him that's like a big circle or sphere. And this was Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche. And we talked about him on Friday morning, and we're going to talk more about him on Monday, because he was an extraterrestrial. I'm going to show you how he could stick his hand into stone and just melt the stone with his hand, and that it's a six-fingered hand. The other folks that had 6 fingers are the beings that were found in the Roswell ship. I'll show you slides of the panels that came out of the Roswell craft that were built for hands with 6 fingers. So there's something going on here. These beings have achieved some level of what it means to be human in the evolutionary path that we don't have yet. And in case you didn't understand that this is very much being scientifically studied, the Institute of Noetic Sciences in San Francisco sent this guy in the mid-1990s, Father Francis Tiso, to Tibet to personally witness the ascension of Khenpo Achos, who you see right here. Let me just pull this over a little bit so we get less interference. So this man literally ascended. He literally turned his body into pure light. Now in this case, this is a more typical example for modern times. His body shrank down over the course of 7 days into a small ashy figurine. And on Monday, I'm going to have multiple photographs of those little figurines, because once they form into that, people wrap them up in little clothes and they dress them up. And they actually set it up on an altar as a testament to this ascension that's gone on. And we also know that there's a guy who ascended just last November in Tibet. So it's still happening. It's been scientifically studied, and what happens is rainbows appear outside the hut where the ascension takes place. There's perfumed smells, there's music, angelic choirs, and then the people who knew him, actually he shows up in front of them after this process is complete. He actually does materializations. And this happened with Khenpo Achos. Also, his body, they wrap it up in burial cloth, but then what happens is his face gets younger and younger looking, and it actually, age regresses. So he looks younger and younger, and his whole body shrinks down until it's only 7 inches long and is just burnt ash. So I want to point out that ancient extraterrestrials appeared all over the planet, and that's something that Ancient Aliens, we've done a lot of shows on that. They now consider it absolutely vital to have me interviewed for every question of every episode on their show, because there's a lot of borrowing going on. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of things that I've seeded into Ancient Aliens that are making it in the latest episodes, especially since last October is when it all started. So here's the thing. What I'm telling you is Padmasambhava had no parents. He shows up as an adult. He comes down in an egg, quote unquote, from the cosmos. He pops out. He's got levitation. He can levitate whole groups of people. He can read your mind. He can mush his hands and feet into the stone. I got many pictures of handprints and footprints he left all over the place that you're going to see on Monday. And most importantly, he's telling us, as they do in every culture where these gods appeared, the gods look human and they tell us about spiritual growth. Because that's all they really care about. The UFO phenomenon is fundamentally the people who are what they call themselves the gardeners. And they're trying to make sure that the garden doesn't get overtaken by weeds, but they want to let everybody grow on their own. They have a prime directive. They're not going to just show up in the middle of the sky necessarily. That may happen in the future. But they're not just going to bombard us out of nowhere. What they're really trying to do is give us the opportunity to be confused, because within confusion lies the spark of inspiration. If you don't know the truth about whether there is an intelligent universe, then you get to be confused, and in confusion you have to have faith. Whereas if they show up and just say, boom, here we are, boom, you're all part of an intelligent universe, boom, there's only one identity, boom, we've been helping your civilization since before you even appeared on Earth, we're billions of years older than you are. At that moment, faith is no longer a leap. Faith is a cakewalk. And in fact, when it becomes a cakewalk, it means a lot less to you as a soul. Everybody just follows the leader. That's what they don't want. They want you to have to figure this stuff out on your own. They want you to have to make it up as you go along and figure out what you believe by putting all the pieces together. So another interesting thing that we see both in the Hebrew culture and in other cultures around the world, and now I'm going to bring in Tibetan Buddhism, is a particular mandala, which in Buddhism they call it Vajravarahi. And this mandala, they say, is the image of the original mind of the cosmos. What? Yeah, they say the mind of the cosmos looks like this. Now, what is that? That's the Star of David, right? You're seeing a flattened out version of what probably many of you are savvy enough to know is a Merkaba, or two tetrahedrons, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a little bit. So is this ancient? Is this just some boring old, oh, that's that old sacred geometry stuff? No, this is a very high-tech understanding. They're saying this is the center of the universe. If you zoom down into the quantum level at any point in the universe, that's what you're going to find. Here's another Vajravarahi mandala. And now we're going to have another one. And it turns out that only with the benefit of the absolutely most recent science that we've gotten, and this is post-2012, this only was published in a paper last December, we now have unequivocal proof that the universe is a hologram. It is not simply a big bang that spurted out a bunch of matter out of nothing, and they try to get you to believe this seeming contradiction, which is, oh, well, nothing exploded. Okay, so you got nothing, right? Nothing existed. Nothing exists. Nothing existed before. Nothing exploded. That's pretty crazy. And then from that explosion, all the matter in the universe is created all at once. All the galaxies, all the stars, all the planets around those stars, woof, created in one single instantaneous blast. Oh, that's the Big Bang. And so what do? We say, oh, that's the Big Bang, and it's like a little file tab that we file that thought away. We don't ever have to think about it anymore. And what do? They wallpaper you with these equations. If our animation will start. There we go. They wallpaper you with these equations, and they say, well, you know, the universe is really frickin' complicated. And you can't understand it because you're just not smart enough and you haven't gone to school. The only way you're going to understand the universe is if you can decode all this mathematical nonsense. And so let the specialists deal with it. You don't have to worry about it. Doesn't this sound an awful lot like the Roman Empire and church service that was done in Latin? You don't know what the hell they're saying, right? Because you don't speak Latin. This is the Latin of our modern times. In fact, it uses Latin characters a lot of times. So it's the same thing. The priesthood doesn't want you to know how the cosmos works. They want you to just accept the contradiction of the Big Bang and say, boom, that's it. I'm going to propose to you something completely different than this mathematical model. I'm going to propose to you that the universe operates on very simple principles. Principles that you can explain to a kid in elementary school. I'm going to propose to you that the universe actually is like a fluid, and that matter is like a crystal in the fluid. So think about a rock candy for a minute. Rock candy, you got a string dangled down into a solution of sugar, And crystals form on that string after 2 or 3 days. But the crystals weren't there before. You don't see them until they form. What if the universe is like that? What if what they're calling nothing existed? Bullshit. It's always been there. This fluid has always been there. And it crystallizes into matter. And it doesn't all happen at the beginning and never again. It's happening continuously. So then how does this, if this is the model, then how would we explain it in a very, very simple way? And the answer was actually found by a Swiss scientist named Dr. Hans Jenny. Even though there's a J in his name, you pronounce it without the J sound, like a Y. And he studied what he called cymatics. What did he do? It's dirt simple, really. He takes water and he puts sand in the water. That's it. Sand in the water. Normally it looks like milky, cloudy, muddy water. No big deal. If that was the whole experiment, it's boring. But then what he does, the only other thing he does is he vibrates the water with pure sound frequencies. So what started out as only being a function of muddy water and only sound in a spherical area of water, this is another important element, it's a sphere. He vibrates the water and the sand gallops together and forms into this stuff. Now, if you've seen my talks before, you're not blown away right now because you've heard this before, but look at the sacred geometry. Look at that shape in the middle. Does that remind you of something I just showed you a few slides before? That's the Vajravarahi mandala. That's what the Tibetan ETs told us is the center of the universe, the core of all creation. And here it is showing up in a frickin' drop of water. And all you got to do is vibrate it according to a pure sound frequency, which you could do just by toning a certain sound with your voice. If you toned it next to that water, you'd get this sound. And then the other cool thing is that you get different types of geometry depending on what sound you make. Now the thing is, the geometry stays stable, but the little sand particles are moving all around inside. They're on the go. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that this is actually what matter is. Matter is not made of particles. Matter is a crystal out of the fluid caused by vibration. Now you're not used to hearing that, so that might seem unfamiliar to you, and you might get some cognitive dissonance and go, oh my God, but look, everything I'm going to tell you throughout this talk starts here. So please make sure that you're not spaced out or texting somebody on your phone right now. There's people talking in the back, but that's because they're not actually in here. So everybody in here, I think, is pretty much dead-on focused right now, because this is fascinating. So what we're seeing here is 12 different frames of the same drop of water under different frequencies. And as long as you play the same frequency, the geometry stays stable. It doesn't move around. It stays in one single lattice. But the individual sand particles are moving all around. So that's what I'm saying is the solution to the wave-particle duality of physics. Oh, well, sometimes it looks like a particle, and it's just sitting there. It's a solid object. Other times, it looks like a wave. Conventional physics says, dude, it's both, and it's neither. It's uncertain, so we'll call it the uncertainty principle. I solved it. Woo! The cat is both alive and dead in the box at the same time until you open the box, at which point, dear little sweet kitty is either dead or alive. What a sadistic freaking experiment. Right? You're going to kind of hope that the cat's still alive. So your bias is going to be in favor of the wave instead of the particle, or whichever one they think is the living cat. It's a sick experiment, but here's the point. This solves wave-particle duality. Matter is doing both. You can look at it as the geometry and it looks solid as a particle. You can look at the individual chunks moving around inside and it looks like a wave. Solved it. Boom. Thank you very much. Nobel Prize, please. They got him a Nobel Prize for saying the cat's alive and dead at the same time inside the frickin' box. How's that possible? It's not. I'm an arrogant son of a bitch tonight, I tell you. You guys, it's too big. If the audience was smaller, I'd probably be a lot more humble. You know, that's the problem. So what are the most important shapes that show up in the water? We know what they're called. Plato delineated this back in way before the time of Christ. I think the dialogues, or Timaeus and Critias, these go back at least a few hundred years before the time of Christ. And he outlined these 5 basic shapes as you're seeing in the next slide, if it'll go there. There we go. We have the tetrahedron, and that should be the familiar one. That's the triangle inside the Star of David, blown into 3 dimensions now as a little pyramid with a triangular bottom. Tetrahedron, which the element associated with it is fire. Octahedron, the one that looks like a great pyramid on the top and the bottom, that's the element of air. Then we got the icosahedron, which is water down at the bottom there. 20 equilateral triangles. Cube, which is 8 sides of squares, and then dodecahedron, which is ether, the mysterious 5th element. You got fire, air, water, and earth, but then you got ether, which is something totally different. So what is this? Again, please don't lose it. Keep track of what I told you. These are vibrations only. They're vibrations that naturally appear in the sand inside a drop of water. Fluid can make these by simply vibrating the fluid. That's all you have to do. So here they are again. Here's the basic shapes that I'm talking about. Now, it was only a couple months ago, something that I've been saying all along, that quantum physicists are finally catching up. This showed up as it's part of disclosure. This is part of them telling you the truth. Are we living underwater? Researchers believe the universe might be a liquid superfluid. New research suggests space-time might be a kind of ultra-cool fluid. Known as a superfluid, this type of matter possesses unusual properties. And here it is right here. This is the article from Daily Mail. And it says, are we living underwater? Researchers believe the universe might be a liquid superfluid. Is there anything else? Yeah, it would provide a medium for waves and photons to travel like sound and air. But for it to exist, the researchers say it would need a viscosity of 0, and it would provide us with a new theory of quantum gravity. So let's just assume for right now that this is actually the way it works, and I do believe it is. The scientists are catching up to this. This is what we were told in the Law of One material back in the early 1980s. They said space-time should be viewed as a fluid. So this is old stuff as far as if you've been reading those books. Then, cut to December of last year. That's when this paper actually got published in a scientific journal, but it originally showed up in October. And what is it describing? Well, first of all, I want to talk about the 2 scientists who did it. That's Nima Arkani-Hamed and Yaroslav Trunka, and here they are right here. Nima Arkani-Hamed is from the Institute for Advanced Study, and Yaroslav Trunka shows up from Princeton University and is now doing postdoctoral research at the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. Now, these guys tackled the biggest, nastiest, most dangerous science there is, which is Richard Feynman's diagrams. The Feynman diagrams are the maps of all the squiggly lines that we find in the quantum realm, subatomic particle, it's not a particle, subatomic interactions. So here's the deal. I can cut through a lot of red tape here and tell you that the bottom line, what they found is that all of space and time did not start in a big bang, because the whole concept of time starting is out the window. Now what you're dealing with is that a geometry is creating the universe, and the universe doesn't have linear time. It doesn't have any space. The only thing that really exists is the geometry. And it's actually fluctuating, it's vibrating basically, and the vibrations create the entire visible universe that we now see and love. Hopefully most of us love it. A couple people don't love the universe, they just walked out. I can't imagine. Maybe I'm getting too technical, the heads are not dropping back though. So you guys are still with me. You know, the Lord will separate the wheat from the chaff. It's just how it works. Don't clap, please. That's like a sociopathic thing to say. No, they probably had to pee or something, you know? Who knows what it was. They're going to be right back like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I got to pee, I just can't. Soda bottles will be permitted at the next conference, right? If you're a guy in particular, just rip it out. Go for it. Put the cap on. As long as you tighten it up really good, we won't mind. You're going to need to be here for this. Where does this come from, right? He's up here and he's down here. Higher chakra, lower chakra, bing bong. It's like a ping pong game between the devil and Jesus. But at least Jesus seems to be winning, right? It's all love. It's all love. Spread the love. So, got to lighten it up a little bit when you get into this heavy, heavy physics stuff. So what are they saying? They're saying the universe is made by this shape that they call the amplituhedron. And I thought somebody's phone is getting texted like crazy. Is it mine? Oh, this is my housemate. Stop texting me when I'm on stage, bro. Jeez. Everybody else turn your ringer off. That was very rude of me. He's going to take his riot baton and beat my cell phone in a minute here, right? Kabam! So here's the deal. This is what the shape is that they're drawing, and notice it's very colorful, but it doesn't really convey very much. What they're saying is this is the center of the universe. I'm saying to you that if you zoom down into any point in quantum space, it's always the same point in the entire universe. So if you zoom into any one area, that's the center of the universe. Isn't that trippy? The center is everywhere and every when. So when you get to that place, it also is before and after, it's past, present, and future, all rolled into one. Time itself is now just a stretch of this geometry. And this is mainstream science in the post-2012 world. So now here's a more technical drawing of what they think this thing looks like. And as soon as I saw that, I got very excited for reasons I'll show you in just a minute. They were basing it on Sir Roger Penrose's work in the 1970s. He was already thinking this is how it works. And that was his prototype of what it would look like, which didn't quite hit the mark. So he was never quite able to solve it, but he got close. And then these guys come along, and they drew this. And I'm telling you, here's the deal. There are pages and pages of equations. Oh, yes! Hello, let there be light! And the Lord said there was light. Praise God! Thank you, Jesus. Now let there be air conditioning, right? Holy shit. I was taking cosmic suppositories up here just trying to do this talk. You gonna check the AC? You're more than welcome, Victoria. You just go for it. I'm not going to make a joke out of you or anything. I promise. Boy, that's not easy. Somebody invades my space, I just get all claustrophobic. It's my stage. But please turn on the air conditioning. Yes, that's a blessing. Okay. So I start looking at it and I say, now that looks a lot like this. So let there be light. I mean, it is a great synchronicity, isn't it? Because when the light was formed, that's what started to oscillate. And that's what light was created. Light was the first thing this created, and then boom, the lights come on. So that's a great synchronicity. All right, so believe it or not, our current temperature is 89, and I'm sure we're going to be at 68 before too long. So, wow. 89. Isn't that something? We made it. We got it. I don't know if we want all the lights on, though. We can maybe fade the house lights now so we can see the screen better. So if somebody wants to fade the house lights, that'd be awesome. Bueller. Okay, Victoria's having a conversation. Can we get the house lights down? No worries, you know. With your last bit of strength. Fighting the Archons and the deadly Illuminati parasite aliens.
And more.
The dark Illuminati have struck, but the light wins at the end of the day. So, what I'm seeing is these guys are only looking at 1/4 of the original Vajravarahi mandala that the universe was made from, that extraterrestrials told the Tibetans in 800 AD, 1,200 years ago. They said, this is what your universe is made out of. And now it turns out they're freaking right. Because this thing is so symmetrical that you can just add in the other 3 corners. Check this out. Watch closely. you add in the other 3 corners of the Merkaba, and you get the shape of the universe. But they didn't need to add all the corners in because the math works by just doing 1/4. Or at least it worked enough that they didn't need to do the rest. So here we are, starting from that. This is not some old scroll nonsense. This is highly advanced technology given to the Tibetans by extraterrestrials ahead of their time. The Vajravarahi Mandala. And what does it reveal? It reveals that the entire universe is an emanation of this single form. And that means that consciousness must be an emanation of this form because we are conscious. So think about that one. Chew on that for a moment. You are conscious. This is what the whole universe is made out of. Therefore, the universe must be conscious because every part of the universe is emanating from one single seed that's at the center of every single part of allegedly empty space. There's nothing empty about it. That's why you can have free energy, because the farther down you go into the quantum, there's tons of energy down there. Everywhere. So here is the Merkaba. This is what people like Drunvalo Melchizedek and others have said is what your energy body actually looks like. Well, this was before that study came out last December. So now we got a whole new way of looking at things, and it extends directly into the essence of biology. Because what is biology? Biology is an emanation of that geometry, isn't it? Because the geometry made everything. Therefore, life must be part of the geometry as well. Because we are alive, life is here on Earth, it's like simple axiomatic logic, right? Life exists somewhere, therefore life must be part of the mandala. Life must be part of the seed of cosmos. It must be, has to be. Well, guess what? Right before the big 2012 turning point, this Nobel Prize-winning scientist, Dr. Luc Montagnier, proved that light is an emanation of quantum information, and that light, in turn, creates biological life. So biological life, then, quid pro quo, biological life is an emanation from the quantum space itself. Quantum space makes biological life. Any scientist who can stare at you, get ready for the slide here, any scientist who can stare at you condescendingly over the top of his glasses like you see in this slide, you know that he's onto something. He's got all these test tubes and stuff around him. I mean, this guy's hip. He's cool. He's probably got a pocket protector outside of the frame that you can't see. So what is he saying here? He said that DNA can electromagnetically teleport itself. Now, that's a misleading term because we'll explain in a minute what he actually did. And it involved 2 glasses of water, or in this case, 2 test tubes of water. That's all it is. Except that one of the test tubes has DNA in it and the other one doesn't. So this is how the experiment gets started. Check this out. This is totally crazy. You'd start with 2 hermetically sealed tubes of water. One of the tubes has trace amounts of DNA floating around inside, and it's important that there's not very many. It's just a little bit. If you got too much, it doesn't work. The other tube is pure, clean, empty water, and they're capped off, they're hermetically sealed, there's no direct interaction between them, no chemicals can be exchanged or anything. So if you got DNA, if you got life in one tube and no life in the other tube, then there should never be any life that appears in the tube that's just got plain water. And the only other thing he does is he wraps a coil around the tubes. And he electrifies them with 7 hertz, which is this basic frequency of Earth called Schumann resonance, the basic electromagnetism that surrounds us. And you cook it like that for 18 hours, just let them sit there side by side, and then, lo and behold, the water molecules in the second tube, simple hydrogen and oxygen, that's all it is, right? H2O? It's not H2O anymore. It becomes DNA in 18 frickin' hours. A Nobel Prize-winning scientist said this. Therefore, you have to accept that DNA is a quantum effect. DNA is a precipitate of the universe. And what did I say? The universe is a hologram. The hologram starts out as a Merkaba. The Merkaba is at the center of every point in space and every location in time. This thing keeps getting stuck on my thumb. What's up with that? Let's put it over here. I got to be able to gesticulate with freedom and verve and pizzazz. Can't be catching it. It's like a time loop, right? It's my time loop. Okay, but it goes on from there. So this original core of the universe that's making all of space and time, it's making life. Well, DNA is not all that you need for life. You need proteins. So life forms are arranging spontaneously because the same geometry, as it turns out, does apply to proteins as well, and that's what all life is made out of, is protein. How does that work? Well, here's your DNA molecule, and there's all kinds of cool sacred geometry with the DNA molecule that you can watch on my show on Gaiam TV. I don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to go into it right now. But let's just look at the geometry for a moment of how the molecules fit together. What do you see there? Hexagons and pentagons, six-sided, five-sided geometry. Well, that's one clue, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And this discovery was made by Dr. Mark White, who has a website, codefun.com. Don't ask me why he called it that, but that's what he called it. He builds toys of this, actually. That's part of it. This is his mapping of the DNA molecule, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but what he said was the DNA wraps over the surface of the dodeck. Now, what did you remember that shape, right? What did I say that shape was made by? Is that a solid Tinker toy? No. I said it's a vibration. This is what fluid does in water when you vibrate it at certain frequencies. The universe is a quantum superfluid made by the original seed, which is the Merkaba, and as the Merkaba is vibrating, it creates all the other geometries, and they are actually creating matter as we know it, and they're also creating life as we know it. So here is the DNA molecule, and if you look carefully, you notice there's a green line and there's a red line. Trace the red line starting at the bottom and then go up, and what you'll notice is that the red line traces perfectly along the straight lines of the little dodecahedrons that are stacked up like a totem pole. You see that? Can everybody see that? And look at the green line. It's going to be the same thing. Look at the second dodeck up from the bottom, the white one. Notice the green line is crossing right over that line. Third dodeck up from the bottom, the dark gray one, the red line's crossing right over the line. That's what DNA is, folks. DNA is a quantum wave. It starts as a wave, and the wave then takes things like H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, just like in that drop of water, and it says, you get over here, you get over here, everybody organize, come on, dance, do it. And they make DNA. 18 hours is all it took to make DNA out of hydrogen and oxygen, nothing else. And this is how it's being done. The resonance pattern of the dodeck is assembling DNA out of hydrogen and oxygen in a drop of water. And that's the basis. That's the scientific proof right there. The code is written into the core of the geometry that is all around us. And that is very, very cool, because that fundamentally changes the model of what we think DNA is. DNA now becomes a crystallized form of a central universal geometry that was just discovered last October. Now we have a whole different way of looking at DNA than what we had before. And it extends directly over into protein synthesis as well. So let's look at that for a second. And you guys are staying with me. Nobody else is walking out, so my childhood narcissism needs are being well satisfied. I thank you for that. Some people are still laughing. Some people are so hypnotized right now, they're like, did he just say narcissist? Does he think he's a narcissist? You can't help it, right? You got to go out there and be a public figure. You got to sell yourself. Whatever. Let's talk about cool shit. This is boring, eh? Okay, so what you got here, the square is actually it's an atom? No. My gosh, now I'm getting hypnotized. It's a cell. The outside hexagon there is yeah, right. The outside rectangle is a cell. Then the oval inside is the nucleus of the cell. Inside the nucleus we have DNA, just like it should be. The DNA exits the nucleus with messenger RNA that grabs its code And then what does it do? You look at the bottom left there, you'll notice the amino acids, those 3 little black triangles. And then, very, very important there, notice the ribosomes. You see those 3 circles? We're going to come back to those in a minute. That's going to be, well, not a minute. It'll be more than like maybe half an hour, but you'll see what I'm talking about. The ribosomes are the primordial part of our cell. Now, there's a model called the eukaryotic model of the cell. You ever remember that one? And the idea is that the cell is actually a bunch of little critters that got together and wanted to hang out. So you got like ribosomes and mitochondria and all these little separate things that decide to shake hands and form a collective unit which becomes the cell. And that's one of the models of how life was formed. Well, the ribosome is the most primitive part of that. That's what provides the raw energy. And it provides the raw energy to allow the amino acids to come together. So what do we have with the amino acids in the DNA molecule? We got A, C, T, and G. There's 4 of them. Now, in his model, here's what he does. It's so amazing. He says the amino acids are the 4 corners of a tetrahedron. Now, think about that for a minute, right? What's a tetrahedron again? It's got a triangular base, and it looks like a pyramid. It's the Merkaba, but it's just 1/2. It's one triangle. So you got 3 points on the bottom, 1, 2, 3 down here, and you got 1 on top. That makes 4. ACTG, his model is, holy crap, the 4 basic amino acids that build everything is a tetrahedron, and then that tetrahedron keeps spinning and rotating into different positions and aligning itself, and that's what life is made of in a greater geometry. So what he did is he looks at how all these different greater amino acids that start forming, of which there's a total of, I believe, 22. Some of them like each other, some of them don't like each other. It's just like a family reunion. If you got a big family, right? You got one group of people that always hangs out over there. You got another people down by the pond. We had this at the Waterman family reunion, my mother's side of the family. Actually, most of us got along pretty well there, but in this case, in amino acid world, not everybody likes each other. Some of them like to shake hands, some of them don't. Nobody's ever been able to figure out, until this guy came along, why that happens. But what he found was, lo and behold, you can map them all out across the surface of a dodecahedron. Now, the dodecahedron, as I said before, is a pentagonal geometry. It's a 5-sided shape that looks like a soccer ball where there's 12 corners. That's it. So that's what life is being formed by. Life is being formed by the original DNA molecule, which, remember, is made by dodecahedrons. It's a crystallization of these atoms that are forced into that pattern of DNA by this intrinsic energy field in the cosmos. Then you got the 4 basic amino acids in the DNA are the 4 corners of a tetrahedron. And it's turning around, and that's what's actually folding up to make proteins. So this is totally incredible. It has not gotten into mainstream science yet. But ultimately, what I've just showed you is you can build every type of life form, because all life forms are made out of proteins. You have about 30,000 proteins in your body. Some of the simplest forms of life, like these simple little worms, they have 20,000. So we don't have a whole lot more than the most primitive forms of life. All of the building blocks that make us who we are can be formed by geometry, geometric resonance patterns. Isn't that interesting? Especially because the whole center of the universe is that same geometry as I've been showing you. So this is like extraterrestrial physics 101. This is like the kindergarten class, just to try to get you over the hump so you can learn a little bit about the way the universe really works. Think about how different our planet would be right now if this was what you were learning in school. Instead of this ridiculous Darwinian model that said, oh, yeah, thank you. Instead of this ridiculous Darwinian model where he says, oh, you know, it's a random mutation. Well, they've taken fruit flies and they speed them up with radiation so that their birth and death rate goes way, way up, and there's lots of mutations. They've never been able to make anything but fruit flies by speeding up the mutation rate. And in fact, there's lots of other things, and I go way more into this science in the Gaim TV show, Wisdom Teachings. There's way more stuff that shows that mutations actually can be corrected by beaming in the right quantum frequencies. So the mutation doesn't do anything for you. It's a totally bogus model based on old school science that we no longer need. So this is a big mouthful, but this is a very important next step to take on. Ultrastructural blah, 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 blah. I'm not even going to read it to you. You can read it if you want to. The guy that did it was Ignacio Pacheco, and it's from the orgone.org website. This is a website that is made by the Wilhelm Reich Institute. Wilhelm Reich did this experiment that I'm about to show you back in the 1920s, and Pacheco replicated it. And this is the proof of concept. This is the bread and butter of what I've been telling you. This is where it really is going to hit you over the head if you haven't already seen it. It's like, wow. What he does in this experiment is he takes sand from a very pristine beach in Venezuela. And then he takes the sand and in the first case, he drops it into a test tube. Caps off the test tube, sterilizes the test tube in an autoclave that makes it really hot, kills anything that would be alive in it, waits 24 hours after it cools off, and then scrapes off this scum that appears on top, which of course they can't call it scum, that would be too untechnical, so they call it a surfactant. Some people laugh, some of you are paying attention. Scrapes off the surfactant, puts it on a microscopic slide, looks at it under the microscope. What does he get? Bleh. Nothing. Big bunch of blobs. Quack, quack. There goes the experiment. Oh, but wait a minute. What if you do one other thing first? What if you took the sand and before you put it in the test tube, you heat it up under really, really high heat to 1,000 degrees Celsius so that it's white hot. And that sterilizes the sand so that all you've got is SiO2, silicon dioxide. Because sand is what makes glass, right? What's glass made out of? Silicon. What's sand? Silicon. You sterilize the sand so you get pure silicon, and then all you have to do is throw that sucker into the tube, sterilize it, wait 24 hours, scrape off the surfactant, look at it under the microscope, and boom! These things start growing. Everything you're about to see grew on top of the water, and all you've got is sterilized sand in sterilized water, and you cook it for 24 hours by just letting it sit there. That's all it is. We actually even see plants, and in the course of them being transferred to the microscopic slide, they break. The roots broke off here. And in this case, one of the leaves on the plant broke off. And you can actually zoom in up close and see complex biological structure in the leaf. What? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is crazy. This has all been suppressed. This is stuff that the cabal doesn't want you to know. This is disclosure. You see, it's not just about, oh, I wonder what that saucer is up in the sky. Somebody just flinged it and then took a picture real quick. Forget about that. Let's talk about this stuff for a moment. That's the stuff that nobody else is talking about. That's why you come to see the David Wilcock show. Duh. These guys are going to have to beat me and humble me down a little bit, right? It'll be quite a spectacle. He's got plenty of good weapons for that, so. All right. We got things that look like red blood cells, and notice right below that, you see that little diamond down there? That's a silicon crystal, because it came out of silicon. Something is intelligently taking that pure silicon and constructing life out of it, and it's really alive, and it only takes 24 hours. Boom. This looks like a white blood cell right here, with a big hungry mouth to go and eat the other guys. And then this looks like the beginning of a shellfish, the little soft body. Why do I say that? Well, in this slide, you actually see the shell forming around the soft body. Holy crap. Can you see the primordial imprint of the seashell in there? The seawater, folks, the sand from the sea is already making the appropriate life forms in 24 hours. And it was already underway because that's what happens at 24 hours. It's already been growing. It's already had time to develop. It happens freaking instantaneously, folks. It's not taking any time. Are you grokking what I'm saying? There's one guy in the back who's on ayahuasca, and he totally gets it. Okay? Raise your hand, dude. Don't incriminate yourself. Now this dude, holy crap. 24 hours it takes for him to cook up in a jar of empty water? Just sand and water, that's it? Are you freaking kidding me? Where did his DNA come from? DNA that's supposedly so complex that it's like the entire Encyclopedia Britannica falls out of the sky from a helicopter. You chop it up into little pieces of confetti, one word at a time, and all the confetti goes and makes the encyclopedia when it hits the ground. That's how statistically improbable it is that DNA arose randomly. And that was discovered by Sir Francis Crick, who discovered the frickin' DNA molecule. You think he knows what he's talking about? Yeah. You can't have DNA appear randomly. The Earth is only 4 billion years old. Liquid water shows up 3.8 billion years ago. What else shows up 3.8 billion years ago on Earth? Single-celled organisms. All the heavy lifting to get life shows up in the single-celled organism. You got the DNA, you got proteins, you got RNA, you got ribosomes, you got mitochondria, you got information transferring throughout the cell, communicating with other cells, intelligently healing itself when it gets injured. It eats, it excretes, it breathes, it thinks, it moves around, it has locomotion, it's alive, and it lives in a drop of water. After less than 24 hours, this little dude is already happily going around kicking ass. He's got spikes, he's pissed off. He's not having a good day. Don't fight with him. He'll puncture you. Are you getting the implications of what I'm saying here, folks? I'm telling you something very intrinsic. This is bigger than the flat Earth becoming a round Earth. This is bigger than the Earth becoming not the center of the solar system, but one of the planets that orbits the sun. Forget about Copernicus. Forget about Galileo and the priesthood not wanting to look through the telescope. This is much more intrinsic. This is a paradigm shift where we go from saying that life could only exist on Earth. Oh, holy Creator, that only blessed us with this one little wave of the magic wand, that it only happened this one precious time on this one little planet in this ocean of galaxies. Aren't we lucky? No, actually, as it turns out, there's everywhere has life because of this. I just showed you ordinary water. We're seeing ordinary water making complex organisms, and Montagnier showed you that you could build DNA in water just by electrifying it with 7 hertz for 18 hours. You got DNA in one tube, you got no DNA in the other tube, you cook it up, and the DNA pops into that water. Because there's a frequency, there's that geometry. That geometry is actually like a fractal. It's got all this code in it that makes life, you see. Just like I showed you, the DNA is made out of a totem pole of dodecs that are all stacked up on top of each other. There's no actual geometry, it's just a wave pattern. It's a resonance pattern. So now I'm actually going to get to the point of what we were talking about, which is disclosure. But I needed that to be the context. I needed to set this up first to give you the context of what then follows, because what follows is that somebody has told the shadow government, you better get ready, you better get this disclosure thing out of the way. You better get people ready and you got to do this. Something has happened. I think disclosure is a lot sooner coming than we think. But what I'm going to say to you will have a lot more impact by having prefaced it with what you just heard. We've all been beleaguered by this man, unfortunately, and I'm not insulting him, but this is Drake. And this is the infamous Drake equation. This is the crack cocaine instant high of every CIA-paid skeptic for the past 40 years. Oh. Boom. What is he saying? He's saying, I can't laugh myself. You see, I got to not laugh when I'm funny, so that way I just keep it going. It kind of breaks character if I laugh at my own jokes. This guy got all crack ghosted on this equation. That's an urban term, by the way. He's all ghosted. Every frickin' dime a dozen bullshit debunking nonsense television program in the last 30 or 40 years says, well, the Drake equation has proven that life is statistically impossible to have appeared on anywhere else but Earth. Oh. It's just not possible, folks. The infamous skeptic Michael Shermer calculated with the Drake equation, well, we think there's about 2.44 to 3.14 intelligent civilizations in the entire galaxy based on the Drake equation. Well, what's the 0.44 civilization look like exactly, Mr. Shermer? Is it the 3.14? What do the 0.14s look like? They kind of walk around like this. Oh! Sorry, you guys are only 0.14. You don't really qualify for a 4. We're going to segregate you folks. You know, separate is better. Just go over there. We're going to take these 3. 3 in the frickin' galaxy? Thank you, Drake. Thanks for nothing, brah. Something happened, folks. Something happened in May that led to this incredible article, which I'm going to quote from now, because this is written up by a site called Wait But Why, based on NASA statistics. Check this out. It is frickin' astonishing. Therefore, I had to put the word astonishing on the screen, just in case you didn't actually hear the word astonishing. I want to, repetition is the mother of learning, therefore, yes, now you get to see it and hear it as well. So the first astonishing statistic is this. There's about 100 to 400 billion with a B. Oh, we got to actually have it show up. There we go. There's 100 to 400 billion with a B stars. Oh, let's see. Is it going to work for us? There we go. It just wants to show you that light show more than once. The computer is thinking for itself. I can't control it. For every star in the Milky Way, there is an entire galaxy in the cosmos. Holy crap. 400 billion galaxies in the cosmos, potentially? Yes. That's a lot. Okay, you see where this is going. This is like one of these formula jokes, right? It builds up point by point. Oh, it's going to get better. Wait till you see this. For every grain of sand on every single beach around the entire planet, if you got some guy, you'd have to hire him, you'd have to have a lot of money to hire a bunch of guys to go out there and count every grain of sand on the beach. That would be pretty expensive. First thing I'd do is get them over here and turn the freaking lights back on. That'd be one good way to use them, but we already got that covered, thankfully. Then we put them out in the beaches. Just start counting, guys. You know, come back in like 10 million years. And then what they're going to find out is that for every single grain of sand on Earth, there's 10,000 stars in the cosmos. Wow, that's a lot. And then it gets even better. If we estimate that 5% of these stars, which is a conventional estimate NASA has now made, 5% of them are like the sun, that's 500 billion stars like the sun in the cosmos. Penis, conservatively, I thought I could get through it without laughing. Peen-ass. How about that? Peen-ass. Or a pnas. Maybe that's how we should. Okay, how about this? The Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Penis. Penis conservatively estimated that 22% of these stars have an Earth-like planet with liquid water around it. And that is something that was published right here. You see, now what good is penis if it doesn't have publicity? You got to publicize your penis. That way, people know that it's there and that it's very interesting. And it's going to shower them with love. Boy, I got to stop right now. That's just enough. My God. They have stiff competition. And they're penetrating insights into the depths of science. Rigorous scientific discoveries. Thoroughly peer-reviewed. Boy, oh boy. 22% of all the stars that look like us have planets with water on them, like the Earth. That totally changes everything, dude. That's like a whole new way of looking at things. So, when we do the math, it comes out that at least 1% of all the stars in the entire cosmos have a potentially habitable Earth-like planet with oceans and lakes and mountains. Wow. 1% of all the stars in the universe. Thank you, penis. That's 100 billion Earth-like planets. Which means, now get a load of this, there are 100 Earth-like planets for every grain of sand in the world. There's a lot of stuff out there. And then, if we make a very conservative assumption, especially in light of what I just showed you, because what did I just show you with Dr. Luc Montagnier? He cooks the 2 test tubes, right? The plain water turns into what? DNA. What did I show you with Pacheco? He takes ordinary beach sand, which is just silicon dioxide, puts it in water, waits 24 hours. What happens? Little critters, like that guy that's pissed off. Okay? So if we assume, which is very erroneous, only 1% of Earth-like planets have life on them, then what do we get? If it'll go, there we go. Every grain of sand on Earth represents an inhabited world in the cosmos. Trip out on that one the next time you're walking down the beach. Just be careful where you're stepping because they might not like it. Ow! 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 Right? That's a lot of worlds. Holy smokes! Forget about Horton Hears a Who. Remember that Dr. Seuss book, right? He's looking at this little dust particle, and there's a whole world on it. Every particle of sand on the beach on every beach in the world, that's one entire civilized world that could have billions of life forms. Trillions of life forms. But the astonishing stuff goes on. It's even crazier than that. Again, they're being very, very conservative here, based on what I was showing you, considering life exists as a blueprint. Assume that 1% of those planets have life that advances to an intelligent level, at least to the level of where we are now. That's not difficult to assume, because we suck. There's a lot farther you can go, right? We're still trying to figure out if we're going to blow each other up. And we're still playing my God is better than your God. God's a freaking Merkaba, okay? He's not going anywhere. He's waiting for you. He, she, it. 1% life advances to an intelligent level. That means that there are 10 quadrillion or 10 million billion intelligent civilizations in the universe. Wow. Now, for the final coup de grace, to tie this all together, we take that same math and we apply it to the Milky Way, to our own home backyard corner. If we do that, if we take the same new formula that we were just working, it cranks out 1 billion planets that we could go move to and live on in our galaxy. 1 billion planets that we could go set up shop in, colonize, build SUVs, and frickin' factory farm cattle and all the good stuff that we love. McDonald's hamburgers. And chemtrails. We'll just start spraying as soon as we get there. Everything from the comforts of home. Spray it up. We're here now. We're Americans. We don't want the sun warming us up too much. Spray that shit. It's getting too hot in here. If we take the same math, we get 100,000 intelligent, habitable worlds that already have civilizations on them. And based on what is said in the Law of One material, they estimate approximately 100 million 100 million inhabited planets in our galaxy. That's what they said. And this is based on the cosmic data that came out in the early 1980s that, as I said, I've validated hundreds of data points from this data that confirm what's going on here. 100 million civilizations. So, sorry, old Uncle Drake, but the game has changed. Skeptics are no longer going to get paid off by this nonsense. What has happened, right? Every grain of sand in the entire world is potentially a habitable world that may actually have an intelligent civilization on it. That's really trippy. Think about how many people have made guitars and drums and jazz bands and stuff, right? It's the same harmonics. Those are universal laws. People are singing, right? They write music. There's going to be some incredible commonalities. And what's the idea? The universe is all emanating from that single geometric cluster. It appears that it's multiple, but it's actually all coming from a singular identity. So there's a lot more commonality than we think, because it's all this one creator, it's one identity. This diagram came out from NASA during the same time frame, May of this year, and they splashed it all over the media, the current potentially habitable exoplanets. These are just the ones that are really, really close, as this next slide illustrates. All the stars that we see in the night sky consist of a small selection of the very brightest and nearest stars within this tiny little red circle. So think about that for a minute. Think about how many stars are out there, and those exoplanets I just showed you in the previous slide are all right next door, and they all are like the Earth. So there's lots and lots of stuff out there. So this is another thought experiment they do in that piece. You start with the Big Bang. Let's assume that earlier along in the cosmos, a planet was born 8 billion years ago. Earth was born 4.54 billion years ago, and now we're at the present day. So this planet gets about a 3.5 billion year head start over the Earth. Okay, just hypothetically, let's assume that. Now check this out. If we then take the Earth and put it at the beginning of the graph, and we crank out the 4.54 billion years, and then we compare Planet X to that, and then we read the red up in the middle there. Planet X was at our current level of intelligence and technology back here. Planet X has now had 3.46 billion years to develop beyond the level of human civilization today. And that's the length of time between Tyrannosaurus Rex's extinction and the present day, is where that orange line is up to the end. So the idea here is that life can go a lot farther than that. Now, I think they're letting me run over. I don't see anybody trying to yank me off the stage here, because there is something coming up at 9:30. I'm only scheduled till 8:30. Would you like me to keep talking? Yeah. I love to create a public uprising. I figured that's what would happen. Public uprising. Thank you. Just in case they were going to yank me off stage, I just wanted to point out, we're talking about disclosure of the dream and the reality. Tomorrow morning at 11:15, and this is at Noble Hall, it's not in here, I have a workshop. It's like a $24.99 extra cost, and I'm going to be talking about the 1950s extraterrestrial humans, because that's the next big thing that we're going to look at is humans are showing up because remember those little pieces of DNA in the water? And remember how the critters show up in the water? Well, ultimately, the key here is that the human form must be part of quantum physics. It's a basic pattern that makes life throughout the cosmos. So we're going to talk about these human-looking ETs that actually showed up right here. They were landing their ships right here, and this land was built to be right next to where that's happening. It's right over there in Giant Rock. And what we're going to do is explore different people who were contacted all over America, and they all independently could answer the same 100-part questionnaire, and they got the same answers, even though they never talked to each other about things like, do the people on Mars use money? And if so, what type of money does it look like? What do their houses look like? All these different people answered these questions the same way, and they'd never spoken to each other. And this center was where all the gatherings were happening, where some of these contactees were speaking and doing talks. And this was all like 50, 60 years ago. So what all of these channelings say, now remember, they're coming through very cleanly. This is before there was any information to contaminate it. They describe a golden age coming, and I am going to get into that at the end of this talk, but we're going to go a lot deeper tomorrow. Then at 1 p.m. on Monday, I'm going to go into synchronicity, the rainbow body, and ascension. And that's the 3-hour intensive where I'm going to really get into how the Tibetans told you to make the next leap in human evolution. Because think about it. If this is the level that you're at right now, there's a lot farther we can go. We're part of a programmed evolutionary curve. So I'm actually going to go into the teachings that really worked, that people practiced, and 160,000 people burst into their light body.
What about the whistleblowers?
And I want to point out one more thing. We are getting into the whistleblowers. That's what's coming up next year. If you don't actually sign up for my show through wisdomteachings.com, I don't get any financial credit for you doing it. So please, if you're interested in my show, it's a half an hour of the stuff that you're hearing now every week. We've already got 81 episodes in the can. And sign up for it there, wisdomteachings.com. It's $9.95 a month. You have a 10-day free trial, and you can make this a part of your life. You can look forward to Monday, right? Which is a good thing. All right, so enough of the commercial. Let's get back to the stuff you paid to see right now. The shadow government, there is a race going on for disclosure. Some people want it, some people really don't. All the things I've showed you from NASA, that's the white hats. That's the good guys trying to get this out, trying to break the stranglehold on free energy and anti-gravity technology. And there's a very nasty war going on right now between the old guard and the new guard. And the old guard is trying to stop this. So this one shows up in June 13th. Pentagon is studying to prepare for a mass civil breakdown. They want this to happen. Pope Francis very recently said that the global economy is near to the point of collapse. But at the same time, we have this fascinating alliance, which I've been talking about for years, and now I get to play I told you so, right? A lot of people said, oh, David Wilcock, he's blowing his own smoke, he's tooting his horn, da-da-da-da-da. We have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa who have now unified together and launched an alternative to the Federal Reserve. Yes. It's amazing. It's amazing. And that went live as of July 15th. So this is a huge game changer. And this was an article that came out, I believe, in May. Yep, May 30th is when that one was published. And then here was a very important article on one of these major websites that talks about the cabal. The BRICS are morphing into an anti-dollar alliance. Now, I want to give you another disclosure that most people never talk about. Why do we act like corporate media still matters? This is going to blow your mind. If you haven't actually seen this or heard this, first of all, this shouldn't come as a surprise. A Gallup poll declared that public confidence in news on television is at an all-time low. Surprise, surprise. Only 18% of Americans in the Gallup poll said that they had a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in news on TV. Only 18%, folks. Now check this out. There is a demographic of people who actually have disposable income to spend. That's the people who actually matter the most to the advertisers, and that's why the advertisers would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to put their ads on a television network, right? They want to sell products, ostensibly. But listen to this. How many people do you think are watching Fox who are younger than 55 years old? How many people do you think are watching Fox younger than 50? You don't have to say it out loud, but just get a number in your head. How many do you think? 3 million? 5 million? Well, they say Fox is so important, so politically relevant, da, da, da. How many people are actually watching? Get this. Only 177,000 people between 25 to 54 are actually watching Fox. And then everybody else is up in the senior citizen range, which I guess there's a lot of people that just took offense, right? 55, fuck you. We'll just say that the seasoned viewers, okay? We'll keep it neutral. Now, that still only adds up to 200,000 and change, okay? So it's not a whole lot more. Or no, that's not true. It adds up to about 1 million. So there's like another 800,000 or so. But here's the thing. In the demographics that matter, MSNBC is only being watched by 103, and CNN is only being watched by 99,000 people. And yet the media is playing the Punch and Judy show between, left-right media. The war between left and right. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody's even watching. They don't care. How many swear words is that now? That's like, I think I got one more. I can do 5 before I start to look really bad. So here's where you see that, right here in this article. Now this is another very controversial thing. This came out on InfoWars. The dreaded ISIS group that has just invaded Iraq, which now we're being told, we got to bomb them, was created by the CIA and the US military. You can Google that up if you don't believe me. Read it up. It's not something we're going to go into, but here's the point. There's some very, very dark stuff going on that must be cleansed. The military-industrial complex, on one level, is being run by people who are Luciferians. And the Alliance, the good guys, know that the only way we can stop these folks is by exposing the truth. And the truth hurts. The truth is akin to, if you throw up, you'll feel better. So I'm going to give you something really nasty. On June 2nd, and I believe the Alliance was behind this, it was revealed that a mass grave of 800 babies were found at an orphanage. Now, what they left out, which others have reported in alternative media, is the way that the babies' bodies actually, the condition that they were in. But here's where it appeared on Daily Mail. They were in a septic tank, like somebody was flushing it all down the toilet, containing the skeletons of 800 babies at the site of an Irish home for unwedded mothers. The children's home was run by nuns. This is Catholic nuns now, so we're back to the Roman government again. Between 1925 and 61, the children were malnourished. They died of TB, pneumonia, measles, and the relative of one missing child has filed a complaint with the local police. So this is this bright and cheerful-looking building. And it was thanks to this brave woman, and she excavated this septic tank. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun to do. And so what's going on is that this was the creepiest picture I could find. These nuns look very ghostly. Yikes. Here's the problem. Skeletons normally are intact. These skeletons are not intact. These skeletons have been chopped up, beheaded, all kinds of stuff. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this is going to become mainstream. We're going to find out that people have been doing this, they've been doing these rituals, and when they're done, they just stash away the bodies somewhere. This is one example where it was found. You're going to hear a lot more about this coming up. They're building up to this. It's going to be very ugly. The whole planet is going to be shocked as we learn this. Kevin Annett is the guy that revealed that the babies had been brutalized. But then there's also good stuff. On the same day that that came out, June 13th, we heard from the Alliance that there are oceans underneath the Earth's crust. And there's 3 times more ocean water down there than there is on the surface. What does that leave room for? That leaves room for hollow cavities inside the Earth with oceans and land. Like the idea, not Flight 370. Maybe that's where it went, the hollow Earth. But this is where these underground cities exist. They have oceans down there. And I've had insiders telling me this for years, and boom, here it shows up. Now this is also very, very exciting. On June 23rd, this was the magic day, somebody flipped the switch on disclosure on June 23rd, about 22nd, 23rd. 3 different stories all pop out at the same time. They're getting us ready. Titan is the only other satellite in our solar system that is openly acknowledged to have rivers, to have lakes, and to have seas. Now, they are technically liquid hydrocarbons, but what if we find sea creatures? Now, this is what it's being called right now. This is the preliminary baby step towards disclosure. They're calling it the Magic Island. Now, this is the before image. And notice that right below the word image, you see a black spot. There's just nothing there. But you notice that little peninsula. Check out the after image. You see something just popped up there? Let's go back again just so you can, now that you've seen it, let's go back. If it'll cooperate. Hold on. There we go. There's before, and there's after. Now, what if, and it says this in the article, that NASA has many other photos like this. What if it turns out that there's a very, very large sea monster that we find on Titan, or multiple sea monsters? When I was telling you about life forming out of that water, I'm telling you about a science that has yet to be announced in the mainstream, but has all the proof that we need. So there's one group of people that's doing a lot of really nasty stuff on Earth. There's another group that's trying to get the truth out because it will free us from this unbelievable satanic cabal that has been ruining the economy of the planet to the point where they're hoping for this mass civil breakdown. Well, to heck with you guys. The Alliance is stepping up, and this is why you're seeing this. And on the same day that these before and after photos appeared, we see a study that comes out revealing that life is growing everywhere in the cosmos, just like I've been telling you. This was the article that talks about it. It shows up the very same day as that mysterious magic island, as they called it, which is obviously could be life. They talk about all kinds of weird life that they call extremophile bacteria. They say that life can grow in cyanide. Life can grow inside volcanoes. Life can grow inside a nuclear reactor. Life can grow in the deepest part underneath the Earth's crust. They're basically preparing you for the idea that life is just made all over the cosmos. It shows up everywhere. Just like I was saying, this is mainstream media now coming out of NASA on the same day as the so-called Magic Island. And then also on the very same day, again in the Daily Mail, a group of Australian scientists come out with a discovery saying that time travel could be a reality, that they were able to simulate quantum light particles interacting with the past in the present, therefore changing the past from the present through this weird little loop of quantum physics. Then, 3 days after that, we find out that habitable planets are right next door to us. This is all part of a programmed disclosure now. I'm not saying this is happening randomly. I'm saying there is a group here that is disclosing, and they're getting us up to the point where we're going to hear everything. This is another Daily Mail article. Alien exoplanet just a stone's throw from Earth and even has similar seasons. It's only 16 light years away. And if we figured out some type of wormhole travel, that's a very short journey. And guess what? They already have it. So the math has already been done. We know how to do it. It's just not being disclosed. So this is Gliese 832c, an artist's rendition of what they think it would look like. And here's the Earth next to it. And then in that same article, out comes this recent diagram that they cooked up for you, and they're showing it to you again. Now, the very next day after this happens, the war advances again, and you probably haven't heard this. So for those 177,000 people who are still watching Fox, you might be a little bit upset about this one. Have you heard about this? No. The FBI has seized email from Fox. And here's the proof in the Daily News, New York Daily News. 80,000 emails have been seized from Fox in the phone hacking scandal. What's this building up to? It's probably building up to some very ugly stuff about how they're lying to us and manipulating us, and that it's all entertainment. Because remember in a court justice hearing that Fox could not be called news, it had to be called news entertainment, just like World Wrestling Entertainment, because they're not really slamming each other that hard. Fox is news entertainment. That's what those 50,000 emails are going to show, folks. So if you're one of those 177,000 who still buy into this left-right media thing, forget about it. They control both sides. That's no big surprise. On the very same day, the Alliance comes forward with another interesting burst of disclosure, which is that robots are now being invested in by Google, and believe me, Google's got a lot of money, and they see where this is going. So they're calling it the Google bot. Well, that's the preliminary name given to it by the Daily Mail. But there was a Robo-Olympics sponsored by DARPA, and this robot built by Japan came out as #1, and Google has now bought it and taken it out of the competition so they can make it into a commercial product. Oh my God is right. Here's the Google bot, or the first prototype. It can climb, it can roll, it can jump. It can save you from a burning building. It could go into a nuclear reactor. It could do all kinds of stuff. And I have been told by insiders, and this is one of the pieces of disclosure that I want to get to you now, that they already are planning that within 25 years, our whole society is going to be moneyless, and most of the things that we need will be run by AI and robotics. And you're seeing the first step right now. You don't need to be afraid of artificial intelligence. The whole idea that AI could take over the planet is dumb. Why? Because as long as we have robots that can work the same way as the ones that are AI, even if they decide to go rogue, which I doubt they would, we can fight them back just like any other war. There's no reason to think that those robots are going to be the only ones that can do anything nasty. We have plenty of nasty stuff that doesn't get controlled by AI. So that was another mind control thing that they did. We find out from talking to insiders that AI is widely used by extraterrestrials. In fact, they have these silver one-piece jumpsuits that you see. That's an AI. That's a robot. It's actually smart clothing, and it senses your body. If somebody shoots you with a gun, it's going to tighten up in the area that the bullet is coming towards you and repel the bullet. You're going to get a bruise, but it would actually stop the bullet. It will actually clean your body so you don't need to take a shower. Hippies rejoice. It can keep you at the perfect bodily temperature. You know, it can basically keep you from having any type of problems as you go through a Stargate, called transdimensional disorder, because as it turns out, when you go through a Stargate, normally it really messes you up. The smart clothes can do all that for you. So, and then everybody ends up wearing a similar looking outfit, and that's what you see in a lot of these 1950s ET contacts. They're wearing smart clothes. So don't be afraid of AI, because it's coming. And we're not going to have to wait very long. Google's going to start selling this. And it'll probably do a lot better than Google Glass, right? Because right now, if you wear that, you're called a glass hole. There, that's my number 5. So what do they say for the Google robot, right? Something crazy I could come up with. But anyway, yeah, I know that we got a 9:30 event coming up, but we're still at only 9:06. And I got some other really groovy slides for you, so just bear with me. 4 days later, the mainstream media reveals that we are all sharing a common core of DNA in the ribosomes. 4 billion-year-old molecules could provide the clues to the origins of existence. This really blew me away. This was on July 1st. It's very, very recent. And it says here, ribosomes contain secrets on how the first molecules of life came together. They are the factories of a cell translating genetic information into proteins, just as I was telling you. The scientists in Atlanta digitally peeled back the modern ribosome's DNA. And they concluded that evolution can add things to the ribosome, but it can't change what was already there. There is something there that they're calling LUCA, L-U-C-A. You see that over there on the right? Well, what you see on the top left is archaea. That is the oldest DNA of the oldest life forms on Earth. Notice the ribosome is the same. And then you go down and you have yeast, you have the fruit fly's DNA, and you have human DNA in the ribosome. Check it out. Every single ribosome, going all the way back to the oldest stuff on Earth, has the same seed, the same core. That is not what we would expect if it was evolving by Darwinian random mutation. Nothing is mutating. It's always there. It's only building off of that original pattern. And this right here is from the saliva gland of an insect. Yuck. It says here that the translation system is the operating system of life. At its core, this is on the bottom of the screen I'm reading from right now. At its core, the ribosome is the same everywhere. The ribosome is universal biology. You see what they're doing? They're getting you ready. This is in Daily Mail now. This is mainstream stuff, telling you what's coming. Then, in this diagram, where they're showing you a primordial cell, it says here, we learned some of the rules. I'm reading from the top now. We learned some of the rules of the ribosome. Evolution can change the ribosome as long as it does not mess with its core. Evolution can add things on, but it can't change what was already there. So this is at the core of all life, and what that means is there is some seed that is unaffected by evolution. The seed is there, and that's the core vibration, just like I've been telling you. Only 4 days later, this is something else that should be a big thing here at Contact in the Desert. I don't know if anybody else has talked about it. A world government officially declared that UFOs are real. Hello? Thank you. That's freaking awesome. Chile released an official study on 2 UFO photographs that were taken near a big mine way high up in the middle of nowhere where it's very inhospitable. There's multiple pictures. Thank you. There's multiple pictures, and I'm going to show you the 2 that the Chilean government actually studied. This is the object that was analyzed. And see, there's other talks you could get here, and I'm not going to name names, but this is all you're going to hear for an hour. Okay, I'm not going to do that to you. We know that they're real, okay? Let's get past that. What you're seeing here, that black spot there, is actually the highly reflective surface of the sunlight reflecting off the edge of the disk. And then this one really blew me away when you look at it up close. It doesn't look that good from far away, but up close, there's the saucer, and you can clearly see the disk, and you can clearly see a half sphere at the bottom of glowing light. That's incredible. And remember now, this is not conspiracy theory. This is the official government of Chile coming forward and saying this has to be a UFO. It's an intelligently piloted craft that's using anti-gravity, and it's not ours. Or at least it's not anything openly acknowledged. So disclosure happened. Whatever. Let's get a big round of applause for this. This is amazing. This is what we're waiting for. You see how all the pieces are fitting together? Isn't this astonishing? 6 days later, The Guardian comes out with the revelation that the NSA is capturing everyone's audio all the time on your phone calls. They're storing it on hard drives at Bluffdale, Utah, in that massive, massive NSA building. And they're saying the ultimate goal is total population control. At least 80% of all audio calls are recorded and stored in the US. And now I'm going to tell you something really that's going to get me in trouble. There were people in the media, and I heard this from my insiders, who were going to come forward and say that not only is all this audio being captured, but that they've got very high-powered computers that are using the same thing on your iPhone, like Siri. And what does Siri do when you talk in? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You get a transcript, right? Everybody's audio is being transcribed by the NSA into written form. Every call, all the audio, and the journalists were going to come forward with this story, and they all got threatened with death if they were going to come forward with it. That's what that big NSA facility is in for Utah. And it's so important now, they're doing so much work for this, that they have actually turned off HARP in Alaska to divert the power over to Utah to transcribe your phone calls. Because they're so worried, because they know they're losing. So amen for them having to turn off HARP to have enough energy to run Utah. It's happening, folks. This is all really happening. 5 days after this comes out, the Alliance strikes again. And they reveal that your favorite haterade that you've drunk online is written by the government. Surprise, surprise. How many times have you been hated on by people in a forum when you're just trying to spread the truth? They're not real people. They're government employees, and that's what this disclosed right here, coming right out of the Snowden documents and others like it. GCHQ is the British equivalent of the NSA, and look at what they're doing. If you read this whole article, what it says is they're infiltrating YouTube comments, they're infiltrating Facebook, they're infiltrating the comment sections on websites, they're targeting people like me. Some of the stuff that Greenwald has come out with actually shows that they're going after UFO writers. So these haters that you can never argue with, because no matter what you say, they always keep fighting with you, they're not real people. They're shills paid by the government. It's all come out in the open. Everybody knows now. It's right out there in the mainstream media. Isn't that incredible? Give another big round of applause for that. Additionally, the same day, we find out that Germany is actually so worried about the NSA and this fight they're having with them that they're actually using manual typewriters. And playing classical music to block their conversations. And then on that same day, the White Hats strike again, and NASA announces that there are 100 million habitable worlds in our galaxy. The official announcement is made. Forget about the Drake equation. Kabam! And this is on old, withering CBS. Whatever is still left of it with its little all-seeing eye Illuminati logo up top, right? Humans will prove that we are not alone in the universe within 20 years. How about like next year or this year? It's coming, folks. You're going to see disclosure. The stuff that I'm talking about tonight is going to become everything that everybody wants to know. And there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of people that wish they were here in this room tonight. Because once the truth comes out, it's going to be like an explosion. It's going to happen, folks. The very same day is the day, get a load of this now. You think all this is just a random chance? That very same day is when BRICS launched their bank to beat the Fed and take them down. The same day. This is all a coincidence, of course. There's nothing, no organized thing is going on here. Not. And then, get a load of this, BRICS meets with South America. And they're aligning themselves with the entire South American set of nations. It's going to become worldwide. It's already happening. Well, the cabal doesn't like that one bit. They're pissed off, so what do? The very next day, Israel announces that they're going to blow the shit out of Gaza with a ground invasion. And this is what everybody's hearing about, right? All this other stuff I've been telling you, that's not getting the attention. This disclosure thing should be a big frickin' story for those 177,000 people who are still watching Fox. But all we hear about is fear porn. Not all this other stuff. Military official says the invasion of Gaza is likely. And then as of about August the 2nd, which is only 2 weeks later, Bibi Netanyahu tells the White House, never second guess me again. Well, what the heck is a false flag? I mean, look at, what is Drudge implying by the way he used this picture here? He's not very happy about it. Of course, false flag terrorism means the government creates its own fake attacks. Israel may have very well launched those allegedly Hamas rockets, and then, oh, you launched rockets at us, now we're going to blow the shit out of you. And guess what's happened? It's a global awakening. Nobody wants to see this kind of stuff anymore. But they're saying, well, we'll put them in there and keep them there as long as necessary. And then the CIA is doing psyops, trying to get you to go back into Syria by taking this guy who was killed in Syria and making him look like the crucified Christ. That's a psyop, folks. That's mind control. Oh, we got to go in and save those poor people. How are we going to do it? Well, we'll blow the shit out of their whole country, of course. They'll be so happy that we saved them as we pick up the bits of their bodies that we've blown all over. So then there's a guy that actually, an Israeli guy actually said, well, yeah, you know, in this case, we should do genocide. People don't like that. Then what happens? The day after, Netanyahu says, never disobey me again. The State Department hits back for the first time ever and says that it was a disgrace, that the shelling is disgraceful. Now, this is fascinating because one of the things the insiders have told me is that Israel has thoroughly blackmailed the United States government, and in order for them to do this, they've got to be willing to go all or nothing, because this means all the dirty laundry against Congress and the executive branch is going to come out. You're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff start to happen. So this is amazing. This is amazing that this happened. And then the very same day, the cabal tries to hit you again. Oh, Ebola, Ebola, holy shit. We're all going to die. Turns out that all you got to do is wash your hands and you're not going to get Ebola. You got to be in contact with vomit, blood, or feces. Direct contact. Or it doesn't do anything. But then Drudge does these alarmist headlines. Oh, they're sneaking into the USA. Oh my God, we're all going to die of Ebola. Fear, fear, fear. Forget about the fear. The military has been working through Anonymous. This is the good guys now. And they totally took down all the Israeli websites. Now, look, I'm not anti-Semitic at all, okay? I like the Jewish people, and I want Israel's honor restored. But the way we're going to do that is you guys got to freaking work with us a little bit here, okay? Don't say my way or the highway. Let's work together. So we see more condemnation of Israel, the mainstream media waking up, where they're paying little heed to the warnings before shelling this school, and then out comes good old Greenwald saying, wait a minute, the U.S. is giving Israel the cash, the intel, and the weapons to fight this war, and then they're saying, oh, we can't control what they do. Israel is just a proxy of the cabal. It's just part of this greater military-industrial complex, trying to stir up trouble. And then look at what's happening now. Cut to the present. They want to keep everybody in fear. So now the ISIS, remember, was the U.S. military's own army, custom built by the CIA, and now they're saying we got to blow up Iraq, and that's what's happening. We're coming to help. Give me a break. But we're getting by with a little help from our friends, just like the Beatles once said. And if you go back to my website, divinecosmos.com, you will read about an amazing event that occurred on August 22nd, 2011, where these underground bases built by the cabal where they could hide out in the event of a nuclear war. The first one in Colorado, right near the Denver International Airport, was destroyed, creating a 5.3 magnitude earthquake, the largest since 1967, in a seismically inactive zone. This is because the base blew up underground, and all these underground trains and the cities that they're connected to blew up. The next afternoon, August 23rd, 2011, the main base that all of the senators and congressmen and executive head mucky-mucks in Washington, D.C. had already stored their teddy bears and their butt plugs and dildos and whatever the hell they need. Sex toys. It all blew up. Boo-hoo. And it shook the entire East Coast with a 5.8 earthquake. The epicenter of the earthquake is exactly where the base is located. Now notice this. Up there in the middle, you can't really see it too well, is Washington, D.C. It's that little square. And then the red dot is where the earthquake / actually explosion took place. That underground city was as big as Washington, D.C. Notice the size of the red dot. And look at this. This is the East Coast shaking. That's how much of the East Coast shook when this base was wiped out. It's tremendous. That is I don't know. So what we have here is this is a normal earthquake that you see in the black line, the black squiggly line down there in the bottom right. And then the green line is what actually happened for Washington, D.C. This is nothing like a normal earthquake. This is actually a spontaneous blast that's at maximum magnitude right from the beginning. So this is the reality that we are now moving into. We are entering into a new cosmic reality for humanity. We are entering into the next phase of human evolution, the new space age. This geometry that I've been talking about, we're going to find out that this geometry is the building block of the entire cosmos, that the cosmos itself is alive, that there is a singular Merkaba at the core of everything that is vibrating and that is making all of matter, all of energy, all of space, all of time. That's MEST for you Scientologists, matter, energy, space-time. MEST. Doesn't sound very fun. Let's call it space-time, energy, matter, STEM. I like that, dude. We got some STEMage. All the things that I've been telling you about are coming into human mass evolution because photons of light store the code. And if you've heard me talk about this before, this is the final thing I'm ending on here, the frog salamander experiment. You shine a laser beam through eggs laid by a salamander, and that picks up the code of how to make a salamander. You beam that light into a frog's egg, and what happens? The frog's eggs metamorphosize into salamanders, and they totally evolve. So that actually is the energetic evolutionary mechanism. And when we look at Earth's history in the fossil record, what we see is a repeating cycle of 26 million years in which all these life forms are spontaneously appearing in the fossil record, and there's nothing in between. That suggests an energetic cause. And then more recently, doctors Mueller and Rode found an even longer cycle that you see here is 62 million years. Now, it's complicated, and I'll go more into it on Monday, but this is the result of a galactic geometry that we're orbiting through. The galaxy takes about 248 million years to rotate. 248 divided by 4 is 62, just like that 62 million year cycle that I showed you here. So here's what's happening, folks. We're orbiting through sacred geometry that is intelligent and alive, just like I told you earlier in my talk. And as we move through it, it's programming all the life in the fossil record, all the life on Earth, just like we actually see in 3,300 different genres of marine organisms. They're all suddenly evolving in quantum leaps. Guess when the next deadline is for the quantum leap? Right now. And you are one of those organisms. Just like the salamander eggs zap the frog eggs, what do you think's happening to your body right now? We're past 2012, we're learning new things, and we are evolving into a new stage of what it means to be human and what it means to be alive on Earth. And therefore, what is happening to us is that we are evolving into some newer galactic civilization. A civilization in which we will coexist with benevolent, loving, extraterrestrial forms of life. I'm David Wilcock, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wow, standing O, hell yeah! Hell yeah! Yes! He shoots, he scores! Hallelujah! All right, so we got somebody to come up here and tell you what's coming up next. We got a lot more fun for you tonight, so stick around. Oh yeah, we have fish oil pills back at the table. This is the pineal gland activating fish oil. It was classified by the US government because it's so healthy. So that's $40 a bottle, and there's 120 pills in there. We have a limited supply of them, but it's a really good deal, and it's one of the things the government doesn't want you to know, because it would bankrupt Social Security, so they said. Anyway, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow and on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Let's give another big thank you for being here.
They cut your mic. Hey, Deborah, thank you. You like it? Thank you. Isn't that amazing? Oh, I still got my love on.
Test.
Excuse me. 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 Thank you. That mic that he was talking into the whole time,
I knew you had a
it
reason.
wasn't working.
Okay. But it worked for him. Thanks, honey. It wasn't that important.